Hi, this video will show you how to draw the Lewis structures for covalent compounds. For my students, the numbers below are the same as the rule numbers in the Wisconsin activity and in your packet. The first step, number 1, count the total number of valence electrons from each atom in the compound. You will need your periodic table. Since chlorine is in group 7, it will have 7 valence electrons. Since oxygen is in group 6, it will have 6 valence electrons. However, there are 2 chlorine atoms, so I add a 7. So 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 6 is 20 valence electrons. And I'll just write VE for valence electrons. Step 2, put the least electronegative element in the middle. That's the one with the lowest electronegativity value. And you surround the central atom with the other atoms. Now, this doesn't always work. The number of single dots in the Lewis dot symbol equals the number of bonds an atom will form. Chlorine has 1 single dot, so it only forms 1 bond. O has 2 single dots, it will form 2 bonds. So chlorine can never be in the middle of the molecule, just like hydrogen. Hydrogen only has 1 dot, but it can only hold 2 electrons. So those must be on the outside. Later, you'll find out those are called terminal atoms. So I am going to put O in the middle and surround it with the Cls. Next step, put a covalent bond, a single line, which equals 2 electrons between the central atom and the outside atoms. So I'm just redraw, as you should as well for step 3. Okay, so remember this single bond, this is called a single covalent bond, and that equals 2 electrons. Then step 4, we add electrons to the outer atoms to satisfy the octet rule, which is 8 electrons around the atom. However, H only will have 2 electrons since in that first shell or energy level, only 2 electrons can be held. Okay, so I'm redrawing it again, and I'm adding electrons, okay, to the outer atoms. So how do I know how many to add? Well, this bond, single bond connected to chlorine, remembers 2 electrons. So I add electrons in pairs. So it's 2, 4, 6, the bond makes 8. So the octet is satisfied for chlorine. I now do the same thing to the other chlorine on the other side. I add 6 electrons, 3 pairs of electrons. So 2, 4, 6 plus the bond makes 8 electrons around chlorine. Both of their octets are satisfied. Next, it says subtract the number of this number from the total number of electrons. Which number? The number of electrons drawn. So I count how many I drew, including the bonds. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So I drew 16, and my total from number 1 is 20. So I take 20 valence electrons minus 16 drawn gives me 4 electrons left. Step 5, add unused or leftover electrons from 4b to the central atom. Check that all atoms have 8 electrons except for H, which will have 2 electrons. So I'm going to redraw this again. I'm just copying from above. It says add unused or let me just get rid of that last one. I kind of drew those a little off. There we go. Add unused electrons. There's 4 left. So where do those go? On that central atom in pairs. So I'm going to draw a pair up here and a pair down here. You're going to add this rule to your notes. Rule 7, count the number of electrons drawn in the Lewis structure. Check to make sure that they equal the same number of total valence electrons in step 1. So remember, the bonds count as 2 electrons each. So I count in pairs is easiest. So this is 2, 4, 6, this is 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So I drew 20 valence electrons. Now, you won't be circling these on your examples. I just did that so you could see how I was counting, but please don't circle it in your Lewis structures. Thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions, or let your teacher know.